YouTube, was good with y'all, man? Today I'm gonna be giving y'all a step-by-step guide on how I lay down my drums. So from hi-hats to 808 patterns and stuff like that. So let's get straight to it. Before we can even start laying down drums, we of course need a sample, and since this video is based on drums, I'm gonna get me a sample real quick. So I want to thank the Melody app for sponsoring this video. I've worked with them in the past. I really like the concept that they have going on, so I'm gonna get my sample from there for today's video. And for the people who've never heard of the Melody app before, like the name says, it's an app which gives you melodies basically. All right, so I got the app pulled up right here. Hope y'all can see it. So basically the app, right as you open it, it shows you a loop and you swipe left or right. Depending on if you like the loop or not. And yeah, let's say I wanted to use this loop. I basically swipe up and it will send it directly to my email. So yeah, that's really easy to use. And since I worked with them in the past, you can now find my loops in the Melody app as well. So yeah, let's find a sample real quick. For the filters, I'm gonna go for keys, maybe some bells, some pads. And for vibes, I'm gonna go for dark. So yeah, let's view the results. All right, so I think I'm gonna send that to my mail. Swipe up and directly to my email. All right, so I just sent that one to my email as well. Yeah, I think we're good to go. All right, so I got one of the melodies pulled up. I think I'm gonna use this one. So yeah, I set the tempo to 155 BPM. The loop is in C# minor, so I'm gonna chop it up a little bit, maybe add some effects, and then get into the drums. So I chopped the loop up a little bit, added the quick EQ, cutting out some of the lows to make room for the 808. Also cutting some of the harsh frequencies out, maybe boosting some of the highs a little bit. So yeah, I'm gonna add a few more effects. Alright, so I'm gonna create a new pattern. It's the 8 bars, copy it over, and start on the drums. So probably the most important tip I can give y'all for laying down hard drums is to use high quality drum samples. So all the drum sounds I'm gonna be using in this beat today came from my rookie season drum kit. I have it linked in the description, so make sure to check that out as well. And I'm also gonna be using some sounds from my unreleased drum kit. It's gonna be out soon, so make sure to subscribe to the channel to stay notified when I drop this kit. So for most of my beats, I usually start out with the hi-hat and the snare. So I'm gonna get this hi-hat from my new drum kit, and probably get this snare from my rookie season drum kit and just lay down a basic pattern. For the ones who know me, I always like to keep my beats organized. So I like to rename my sounds. As you can see, I renamed this to hi-hat and this one to snare, so that when I'm done laying down the drums and I'm arranging the beat, I know exactly what sounds are the 808 and the hi-hat and the snare. Also, I'm gonna put this to stretch and probably speed this up a little bit to like 166 to add some more tempo to it. So after I laid down a basic 2-step hi-hat and a basic snare pattern, sometimes I like to go for an 808, sometimes I like to add an open hat. Or add some rolls to the hi-hats. Yeah, that really depends on the beat, of course. If I got a hi-hat pattern in my head, I like to get that out the way first. So yeah, I think I'm gonna start out with the hi-hats. And of course, you want to lay down some rolls. So I like to use this 1/3 step and this half step. I think I'm gonna go with 1/3. Get this brush tool right here. That's how I lay down my my hi-hat rolls. So what I like to do is I usually start out with the first 4 bars, then I copy it over and I kind of switch things up in the second part. What I got laid down so far is I copied this note down an octave, just to spice it up a little bit since you don't really hear that too often. Next thing I like to do is to cut out some of the hi-hats to add some more bounce to it. So let's say I didn't take that note out, it would sound like this. Right to this. Next, while being in 3rd step, I lay down this roll right here and I cut out the last note. That's a great tip. So let's say I didn't cut that out, it would sound like this. Adds a little stop to it when I cut it out. Sounds way different. So I think I'm gonna go in 6 beat now and add some more rolls to it. All right, so I got the first 4 bars laid down. Like I said, I used a 1/6 beat right here to kind of switch it up between those two. Kind of use 2 different note lengths, if that makes sense. And in my opinion, that makes it sound a whole lot better instead of using 1 note length throughout the whole hi-hat pattern. So yeah, another thing I like to do is instead of adding rolls in other parts, I like to pitch some notes down. So for example, I got this B right here. Next, I got these 2 A's right here. And what those notes do is they basically complement this roll a little bit. So let's say I took those notes out, it would sound like this compared to with the accent notes. In my opinion, that sounds way smoother instead of the roll just coming in out of nowhere. You basically got 2 notes kind of fading it into the roll and kind of ending the roll right here. So yeah, what I'm gonna do now is copy it straight over to the next 4 bars. Maybe switch it up at the end a little bit. So yeah, switch it up at the end a little bit, added this roll, and next, instead of a 2-step pattern being right here, I cut that out and I went into 1/3 beat, and I laid down this roll right here, which I faded a little bit to the right, and I also made that fade in velocity. So yeah, this pattern pretty much proves that it's just about trial and error. Like, there's really no theory behind hi-hats. Just gotta match it up with the sample a little bit and just experiment till something sounds good. So the last step for the hi-hats, what I like to do is use Alt R or Option R and kind of mess with this randomizer a little bit. So randomize the velocities a little bit and also mess with the panning a little bit. You don't really notice this too much, but I just like to do this to spice it up a little bit. Right, so now that we got the hi-hat and the snare done, I think I'm gonna add an 808 to it. Get the spins from my drum kit, rename it to 808 to keep things organized like I said before. Next, make sure to right click it and make sure it's on cut itself so that the notes don't overlap when you're laying them down. And now, instead of starting out the 808 on the lower octaves, I always like to pitch them up a few octaves just to be able to hear if the notes are in key or not. So when laying down an 808 pattern, you have 1,000 different approaches, but I'd say the first like 4 notes are pretty much fundamental for laying down a pattern, because the first notes really give the listener a feeling of what the bounce is going to sound like. So I can start out with this right here. But I could also do something like this. You could also try some more unique patterns, of course. Something like this. That's good as well. Or 2 notes right after each other. So I'd say as long as you stay in the scale, just make sure to experiment a little bit and find out what sounds best with the sample. So yeah, I think that sounds best with this sample. So you could leave it on the D sharp throughout the whole beat, but what I like to do is add some different notes to it to kind of switch it up a little bit and not have it too repetitive. See, that sounds good so far. Of course, you can pitch some notes up and do stuff like that. Only thing I think I'm gonna do is add a little roll at the end. So yeah, I laid down this A sharp right here. I think I'm gonna just copy that over with these notes. Maybe play with the velocity a little bit. Maybe play with the pitch. So yeah, I'm gonna experiment a little bit. Lastly, what I like to do is go into the envelope right here and change it to this box shape. What that does is when this note stops, when this note ends, the sound also ends, so it doesn't like fade out throughout the next pattern. So yeah, now that we have these 3 sounds laid down, I think I'm gonna lay down a counter snare. Went to my drum kit, get a counter snare. Yeah, counter snare for me just adds a lot more bounce to it, and of course you got a million approaches to this as well. So you can basically start out with something like this. Sounds cool. Or you could go for something like this. See, I'm gonna start laying down a pattern which goes well with the melody. But the ones who noticed, this last note didn't really match with the 808 and the hi-hat, since those are in 3rd step, and this is really like off the grid compared to the other notes. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go into 3rd beat again and lay down a snare roll in the 3rd step, of course. So that sounds way better now that's actually in grid with the hi-hat and the 808. So I added this little roll at the beginning and just followed the hi-hats right here. Also added these two little notes that kind of fade out in velocity. I might pan them out from left to right. And next for the roll right here, instead of it being on one note, like I said, I might pitch it down a little bit. Something like that. Also play around with the velocity a little bit. And we got the hi-hats fading out to the right. So I might fade this out to the left. So yeah, this part right here should sound 10 times better compared to that one little note we had at the beginning. I think I'm gonna add an open hat now. My new drum kit. Just browse around and see which open hat sounds best. So yeah, I'm gonna give y'all a few examples of open hat patterns you could lay down. You could basically put one on the first and just leave it like that. Maybe copy it over. And that's very minimalistic. Or for example, you could delay it a little bit. It's hard as well, or delay it even more. It's really personal preference, man. So yeah, I liked how it sounded a little bit delayed right there, I believe. So I'm gonna copy that over and add some notes in between. Alright, that's perfect. I'm gonna clone this and add a reverse open hat. I'm gonna click reverse. Maybe cut some off the beginning a little bit like that. Next, I'm gonna click cut itself right here and decide where I want to add my open hat, my reverse open hat. So yeah, I think I'm gonna add it right here, right before this open hat. And to make sure that they don't clash, what I'm gonna do is add another note right here and lower the velocity since I click cut itself right here. So now this note will stop right here and actually make room for this open hat right here. So I'm gonna copy this over and play the whole pattern. So that's perfect. Lowered this velocity a little bit to make it sound a little bit more different compared to the first open hat we added. Next, what I'm gonna do is go into pan. Probably pan this out to the left, to the right. So yeah, make sure to play around with the panning on your drums. Really makes it stand out a lot. So then probably the last step is to add some percussion to it. So I'm going to my rookie season drum kit and just find a few sounds that I like. So my thought process behind percussion is to basically fill in some empty gaps and to add some more bounce to the other drums, kind of complement them a little bit. So then the last step is to send it to a mixer track. I did that using Command L or Control L. So I'm gonna mix it real quick, kind of glue it together a little bit. Also make sure to subscribe to the channel, man, because I'm dropping a mixing tutorial soon. I see y'all asking for it. So yeah. All right, so I mixed everything, split it by channel. Copy it like this, and now everything is very clear. We got the 808, the hat, the snare. That's why I like to rename my things to keep things organized. Copy that over. Yeah, that's what we ended up with. Alright, so that's pretty much it, man. That's how I lay down my drums. So I hope y'all learned something from the video. Also want to thank y'all for watching the video all the way to the end. So make sure to subscribe to the channel. We're close on hitting 9K. So I really want to thank y'all for that. Also make sure to let me know in the comments what y'all trying to see next on the channel. Don't forget to check out my melodies on the Melody app, of course. I'll have it linked in the description down below. And yeah, that's pretty much it for me today, man. So we'll catch y'all in the next video. Y'all stay safe, man.